Mike Morrison, welcome to Focus on the Fun Stuff.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's funny because you're one of those people in my life that I feel like I've known forever, but I've only actually met you, was it a couple of weeks ago now? And we met at Chris Tucker's Long Haul Leader Summit. And I saw you speak on stage that day. And as you were talking, you were telling this story, which I just knew was going to resonate so much with all of our listeners, because it was literally about having the nightmare client and all about how we create these businesses that we don't enjoy. And then you went on to really unpick and unpack how you then create a business where you can focus on the fun stuff. So, Mike, you are the founder of Membership Geeks. You teach other people with existing businesses or with expert knowledge and skills how to create membership businesses, which are amazing because they're full of recurring revenue, and we love that. And we're going to unpack membership businesses later in the episode. But to start with, can we just go back to like pre-2015 when you had this other business before Membership Geeks, which is the story you told on stage about the nightmare client and the business that you didn't enjoy. And let's just kind of delve into that a little bit and how you weren't and why you weren't focusing on the fun stuff.
Yeah, so officially, I went into business for myself in 2008. I've been doing kind of little bits and pieces before that while in other jobs, but uh, only really saw the skills I'd built in sort of web development and online marketing as something you could sell and promote around about 2007, 2008. So I started as a freelance web developer and digital marketing consultant um, in February 2008, and then spent the first, I would say, 3 years doing everything absolutely wrong. Like, I would undercharge, I would take on jobs with people who I knew were going to be an utter nightmare, but well, you take on every bit of work, right? You take on every client. That's what you're supposed to do. You're lucky if someone wants to work with you. So I took on the bad clients. I massively underestimated how much time it would take. I massively over delivered, and I got so complacent in my marketing. I invested in the wrong things. You know, Yell.com listings and stuff like that. And yeah, I had a disastrous first few years of freelance self-employment. But along the way, was building up that body of work and learning the hard way what to do by process of elimination, I suppose, from doing all things I should. Um, and yeah, that kind of led me to getting a little bit better, a little bit clearer on who I should be working with, and building, I suppose, that self-respect for for what I was doing, for my skill set, for what I brought to the table as well. And um the clients got a little better, the business got a little better, and I started working with uh who was Callie Willis, who started the agency with me. Um, and as that grew, became a little more selective, a little more niche down, started working more with online memberships, and then ultimately went all in on those in 2015. But that was like a 7 year journey through all the pitfalls of self-employment and service work and clients that you could possibly get. Um,
Yeah, and networking groups.
oh,
And when you were talking about BNI in your presentation, I felt totally seen.
that was my first official act in business. Like, I registered self-employed with HMRC the night before the breakfast networking meeting nearby the next day, and that was BNI, and that was a curious one. It helped get me started. I got my first clients. I think I got 3 clients on my first meeting. They hadn't had a web designer, so I went in just as web designer. They hadn't had a web designer in a couple of years, so I got jobs from all the people in the room who needed a website redoing. They got the best websites for as cheap as anyone has ever got that quality of work, because I'm disgusted at how little I charged them, but I didn't know any better. Come from regular salary job, where I was doing quite well. I worked in banking, inexplicably considering what I do now. I still don't free going self-employed. I still don't quite know how that worked. And I judged the hourly rate I was charging for my work freelance on what my hourly salary worked out at in an employed job. It didn't even occur to me. Like, I know I've got to charge a little bit more, but I was charging £25 an hour for some pretty advanced programming and some pretty high level digital marketing strategy. Um, and it was actually for all the interesting war wounds of BNI, it was a fellow BNI member who did say to me, "You need to double your prices. Just the next 3 projects you get in, just double what you're going to charge them. And if you get at least one of those jobs, like, you owe me a coffee." And I got all 3 of those. Okay, right, maybe I should charge a little bit more. And I think that was my first little stepping stone towards actually thinking outside of this mentality of, okay, I'm working for myself. I need money. Money comes from clients. Clients are the be all end all. Take every job you can get. But that was a long way from 2015.
Yeah, and like along this journey as well, you were doing a lot of things, weren't you? Like I know you'd written a book, you were doing a lot of speaking. It's not just like you were going out for the odd random coffee, like you were full energy into this business.
I was trying. There was a lot that I did that I'm still kind of proud of. The book wasn't intentional. The book was an accident. I started writing a blog post, 10 ways to market your business on a budget, and I ended up with 20, then 30, and then 101, and thought that should be a book, not a blog post. But no, I always had that kind of itch that the normal trade time for money, client to client, one-to-one approach, that there had to be something a little bit beyond that. That can't be sustainable. And I think it's because I was feeling it literally was not sustainable. The work, the dealing with clients, the attachment for me of the survival of the business means money, means I put more time in. So if I work like 10 hours each day and I can sell every one of those hours, if I work 12, then I'll make more money. Like that sort of burnout mentality, that was really impacting me, and my mental health and my physical health and everything. And so I knew it couldn't be sustainable. Like, surely not everyone who runs a business works like this. Not everyone who runs a business feels like this. There's got to, this is the a cheesy line in marketing. There's got to be a better way. Like, but there had to be, surely. Like, you can't just be trading time for money, and that is business. So I always had that itch. I knew there was something else. I just hadn't totally landed on what that was. As I said, the book wasn't necessarily intentional, but I did think, okay, so I write this book, and then maybe on the back of that, I can sell some workshops, and sell some consulting, to then kind of have that penny drop of the book is about how to market your business on a budget. Like, if you have no money, the people I'm marketing this to have no money to spend on workshops and expensive consulting. So but I was kind of making those inroads. Like, I knew there has to be a way of leveraging my skill set, which I worked hard to build, my expertise, which through all the terrible clients and undercharging was building, the results I was getting, that body of work was like, this has got to be worth something a little more than an hourly rate, surely. And it took a little while to get there, but yeah, I was trying to make those inroads.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like you're doing a hell of a lot.
Too much of the wrong thing.
So can I just ask you to tell the story that you told at Chris's event? Because I think there'll be so many people listening to this episode and nodding away, going, yeah, I've got that nightmare client in my business. I recognize her. She thinks she owns my soul. And I think if you could just retell the story and where it led to in your life, I think it would be just so helpful for so many people listening.
It was a huge, huge thing. I usually tell that story to kind of start off to really paint the time for money one-on-one thing as the baddie in business, and frame why I went one-to-many with a membership. But at Chris's event, I told the real story, because of course, when you're doing a speech and doing a talk, you twist the story to suit the. But at Chris's event, I told the real story, of Lynn Fa, not Linda, Lynn Fa, who sounds made up. Yeah, she was the PA to a florist, a wonderful florist in London. And I was working with a PR company, I believe it was, to create her website. She had a beautiful website. There's a great designer, did the design work. I was just doing the code monkey stuff. And the florist, I'm not going to name her in case she's still in business. She was wonderful.
Right.
She was so lovely to deal with, but unfortunately I wasn't dealing with her. Her PA was on me every day about nothing. Like, I think there was a degree of kind of trying to justify her own role in the business. Or maybe she was just wired the way where everything was wrong. And there was just one particular day, you know, I was locked in on a project and the music was going, I was in my zone, and my phone was just kind of blowing up. Oh, you know what? I'm realizing I'm telling the version of the story I tell in my talks. You know the twit. So I normally tell it as it was 10:30 in the morning. My phone was blowing up. I was working on a project, and then the rug pull is it wasn't 10:30 in the morning. No, I wasn't working on a project. I was with friends, not paying attention to my phone, but my phone was blowing up. And the reason I was with friends and wasn't paying attention was because it was 10:30 on New Year's Eve, and it was Linfa blowing up my phone with complaints about the font size on the website. Like, she thought that there was a particular section in like the product description page, the font was too small and needed changing immediately. And this was 10:30 on New Year's Eve. So yeah, I've told this story so many times. I normally do it as that would be bad enough at 10:30 on a normal working day. Like, she was screaming on the voicemail messages, like abusive stuff, questioning my integrity, my ability. You know, shouldn't be paying you a single penny. Like, it's a font size. You wanted shifting from 12 pixels to 14 pixels.
Was it literally about font size?
Literally as trivial as that. And yeah, so when I tell the story, it is like to point out this should not be tolerable anyway.
Yeah, in a working day.
In a working day. But this was New Year's Eve. And that for me, I was a good few years in by that point. I'd corrected some of the mistakes I was making in my business. I was charging a decent hourly rate. I had good processes in place. I had good support around me. I wasn't burning myself out too much. But this was the thing I think that really fundamentally hit home to me of
like, what's going on?
This is wrong. The mindset, the attitude, the subservient place I think a lot of us put ourselves into when we trade time for money, just by virtue of the fact that, like, all we have is time. Like, I can't pay the bills with time. You have money. Like, what you're giving me is, in the real world, more valuable than what I'm giving you. And so much of, I think, the entrepreneurial space puts that mindset into you. The old school, the more traditional entrepreneurial space, talk about those networking meetings. From day one, it's drilled into you that if you were not at that meeting, you would not be capable of attracting clients on your own. It was in the script. It's so manipulative. It was in the script. What else are you going to be doing? How else could you possibly do this on your own? You can't. You need this organization. There's reasons why organizations like that are referred to as cults. They borderline are. And that mentality really, really seeped into me in my formative entrepreneurial years. And it was that realization through Linfa, through the abuse, through just having that moment of clarity of, like, I'm extremely good at what I do. A lot of people recognize that. I work my butt off for my business. And beyond all that, like, I'm a human being. You don't speak to, like, you can't let people treat you like that. And that just flipped it for me. That was my, you know what, I'm just kind of going to rip up the script and do it a different way. What if I get out this mindset of, if someone wants to work with me, I should be grateful unconditionally for that. The fact they want to work with me, they're almost doing me a favor. You could have worked with anybody else. My Lord, thank you for choosing me. I'll bow and scrape and do whatever you want, however you want, and I'll take your abuse. How about no? How about recognizing, you know what, you want to work with me, the standards I have. I have a standard for my clients. And that standard should be not screaming at me on New Year's Eve, not calling my professionalism into question because I'm not answering the phone at 10:30 at night, on any night. And that totally changed my entire mindset and the trajectory of the business, I think.
And so from that point, because I mean, God, we've all had those experiences, haven't we? Like we've had those kind of clients. I've definitely had them. There'll be so many people listening to this going, well, I've still got clients like that. And there's so many of them in the self-employed business owner world.
So it started with really examining, okay, how, with this client in particular, how did it get here? Because that's just indicative, like, what am I doing? How am I getting the work? What are the people around me doing? A lot of it had to do with client intake. So it's just reframing that, setting processes. So like yeah, when you get started with a client, so it's literally from day one. Okay, like what did I think about this person? What did I think about this job at the start? Did I have an inkling it was going to be like this? And then did I just betray my instinct? So it was really examining things like that. Like,
don't you? So
yeah,
you got
yeah,
that gut feeling.
absolutely
It's
no.
gonna be tricky, but they're
Yeah,
about to pay me, I don't know, 4 grand a month or something. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so it was really having that kind of brutal conversation with myself, which led to some pretty brutal conversations with people who were referring work to me, because some of the problem was people were referring work and not quite telling me that they had the instinct this person was a nightmare, or I've been working with them for a few years, they are a terror. Would you like to work with them? They weren't telling me this. So there was a communication breakdown there. A lot of it was internal. It was just boundaries. It was deciding what I am going to accept and not accept. Recognizing that, yes, okay, if I take this client on, then I'm going to get my time paid for. Um, but what's the actual cost to me? How much time have I spent stressing about it? How negatively has work for other clients been impacted? Like, because those people drain you of everything. And so it started by looking at all of that and then rebuilding my approach, my marketing, my positioning, the networks I was in, pretty much from the ground up. I totally changed my stance, my standpoint. It was very much the not totally arrogant, but self-respecting position of, if I choose to work with you, we're going to do great things together. As opposed to, well, if you choose to work with me, I promise I'll do a good job. So I made people apply to work with me. I made them do a lot of work to start with, because most of the projects I took on were fairly complex. And a lot of the time, delays, problems, fallouts, communication breakdown was happening because I didn't have everything I needed from them, or I hadn't asked them the right questions at the right time. They hadn't equipped me with everything or told me everything they needed. And so I had people do like a full on like self audit and assessment, and like, I'm not going to come on and do a discovery call with you. You're going to give me all this information before I give you any of my time. So there was like a 20 odd page pre like project setup, like workbook they had to fill in. For me to be able to look at that and say, okay, I can work with you. And this is what it's going to cost. So I was able to quote accurately. And I wasn't getting on phone calls that was going to waste an hour of my time when actually you know, they weren't someone I wanted to work with, or someone I could work with, or the project was too big. So that changed it significantly for me. It was processes, it was clarity, it was boundaries, it was switching the mindset on the client-supplier relationship to recognize that it's a collaboration. Yes, you're paying me, but that doesn't mean I'm subservient to you. You are paying me because I'm good. You're paying me well because I'm very good, but I can only do what I need to do if you're going to do the work. And if you do that, and if we establish that mutual respect, that mutuality, that collaborative mindset, and you're good with that, and that doesn't trigger any weird narcissistic problems for you, you're not going to have a meltdown over a font size. If you do that, then we're both going to be very happy. And if we're both very happy, the project's better. And it is that thing, and I've mentioned Chris Ducker a couple of times, a mutual friend, and something he says a lot. I didn't know Chris at the time, but something he says a lot is, like, if you market like a magnet, you attract the best and repel the rest. And it really is just about, you actually get that clarity on what does my ideal client look like. And I don't mean the type of client avatars we all make. Well, my ideal client is in their 40s and they do. No, like, what do they show up like? How do they act? How do they respond if the website breaks? How will they react if there's a little bug, or if they ask for something I can't do? Like, do they melt down, or do they kind of, okay, let's come with understanding it? And it is just, if you aim and position yourself and structure things to work with the kind of people who actually do light you up and make your job fun, then that strange thing happens. You actually do attract more of those people into your world. Whether it's the clarity, whether it's just you show up better because you're not dealing with the headaches from all the lymphas, but you do end up attracting those kind of people. And I think that tends to be the scarcity mindset that the networking organizations, the old school marketing advisors and business advisors instill in you, creates that fear that if I become selective, if I become picky, if I turn down work, well, then what if that client I just turned down is the last one who ever wants to work with me? And it doesn't happen like that. It just doesn't. When you get that clarity and you get that intentionality about who you want to work with and how you want your business to look and run, I'm not a manifestation kind of person, but it comes. It does come. Because you just instinctively do the things that bring those people into your world.
And so on January the 1st, post the Linfa incident, I'm guessing that you didn't just go, well, I'm not doing any of that anymore, because there'll be people listening saying, well, I've got that client, but I can't just dump them because I don't have anybody to replace them. So what was that journey like, that transition? What did it look like that you went on post that incident and going, I want a different business?
Not anymore. Haven't for a long, long time. So again, I kind of always had that mentality of need to get more out of the hours that I'm putting in. So 1 hour can't just be worth my hourly rate. I need to be able to leverage this somehow. So I was very aware of opportunities in online learning, in productization and all that sort of stuff. So I was always kind of exploring those. But through being a little more selective, a little more intentional about the kinds of clients we worked with, we start bringing in some really interesting projects. And some of those happened to be some of the earliest online memberships that started to take shape. Back in 2013, 2014, online memberships weren't really a thing. A few people had them, but most of the time when you'd see them, they were a little dodgy. They were something that the old school sleazy internet marketers would do. They call them continuity programs. And their whole approach is like, just get people in on a subscription and like hope they'll forget. And they're just getting billed, or, if they want to cancel, then, have this big long process they need to do, and, it'll be too much hassle. And so they'll forget. And like, it was all about just locking people and tricking people into subscriptions. But I think it kind of came with with the increased popularity of YouTube in particular, because you had a lot of creators started creating educational material for YouTube, like instructional information. So you had music instructors who were like just start putting their videos on YouTube and making a little bit of money there. And then so they were start to looking at, okay, well, actually, what more can we do with this? And that started fueling what became the membership industry. And the technology started progressing around about the same time. And so it was that nice little wave of things lining up. And so we start to have a few of those types of projects coming in for people saying, I don't really know what this is called, but can you create it? Can you build this website? And, to start with, it was one out of a dozen projects. And then there was one or two. Then there was two or three. And they were just so much fun of everything. Like, I'm more fulfilled when I feel like I'm flexing my muscles, when I am using all the skills in my skill set. I have a unique, this Liam Neeson, a unique set of skills. I I taught myself programming. I struggle with depression in my early 20s. Genuinely give myself the distraction of learning how to program and build websites. Got me through that because it was something I could just lock in and distract myself with for 14 hours. And you were creating something, and you got a little bit of a dopamine hit from that. So I taught myself how to build websites as a hobby. I didn't know people gave you money for doing that. I had marketing, like my educational background is in marketing strategy. My employment background was in sales. So I kind of had this cocktail that most marketers couldn't do the tech. They could maybe do a little bit of the sales. Most salespeople weren't really doing marketing. They were just like hard sales. And web developers could, no offense to web developers out there, but most web developers then could barely even speak to another human being, let alone tie all that other stuff in. So the times I was least fulfilled were when I felt like I was just using one bit of that. Like I was building a 4-page website for an accountant. That's not flexing my muscles. That's kind of like I've got this huge toolkit and you're just constantly asking me for the screwdriver. Like I want to hit something with a hammer. I want to like saw something. I want to do stuff. Memberships, I think the personal reason I was drawn most of them was because there's so many moving parts, and the website lives. The website is the product. The website is where you deliver. It's not a brochure for the actual product or service. It's not set it and forget it. It's not a catalog of product. The website itself is the product. And so what I could do, I build the website, get the strategy, but then everything after. Actually, I can work with them to help them grow that membership business and help with the marketing and the strategy and help them with the retention. So the websites are more complex. So I was using more of my skills, but also the follow-on to that just opened things up even more and even more in terms of me working with that client. So yeah, myself and my partner were just kind of, these are really fun. These clients are also the best clients. They're the most interesting clients. They're the best people to work with. We didn't have any lengths. The subjects are just so varied and diverse. It's just really cool people as well. One of my favorite clients of all time is a guy called Scott Devines, based in Leeds, bass guitarist. Genuinely, he's painfully cool. Like he's effortlessly just cool. You're just like, dude, can you just like
turn it down a bit?
Yeah, can you just like fall over or something? Do something that just is a little bit embarrassing. Like, but he's lovely. He's the best client I've ever worked with. He's just so chill, so collaborative, so open everything. And we just had lots of Scots. Amazing clients. So we gravitated and we're like, okay, actually, someone came in and wanted us to do a membership site. Someone asked us to do a brochure site. No, we're going for this. And then it just became narrower and narrower and narrower, just based on the type of jobs that we liked doing, the type of clients we liked working with, and the ones that allowed us to flex our muscles the most, to the point where I think in the first month we had, where we didn't take on anything other than those clients that come in with memberships, that's when we kind of said, should this just be what we're doing now? And we rebranded, we pivoted. We just focused on memberships because now we had this body of work we were creating. We'd start trickling out some little blog posts as well based on the stuff we were doing that was working. And yeah, then we were off to the races. We were membership specialists at a time when that industry was just taking shape. We were right at the start of that. And that was just having the confidence, I suppose, that had come from that turning point years before of recognizing, and actually betting on instinct, betting on focusing on the clients that we want to work with. That has changed the trajectory of the business. So doubling down on that, surely that's gonna keep doing that, and it did.
So memberships, can we just delve into memberships for a minute? Because I feel like there'll be a lot of people listening to this who won't know what a membership business is. And you obviously teach people that, but also have a membership business that has enabled you to focus on the fun stuff and the things that you love. And because am I right in thinking that a lot of your clients, they'll have a membership business, but they'll also have a service or a product business. And actually, like, the membership business comes from a skill set or a knowledge or an expertise that they already have.
They do usually come from people who have been trading time for money one-on-one, who have expertise and experience in something specific. And yeah, they just kind of recognize that there's a better way, another way that they can leverage that. So most online memberships tend to be a combination of what I call the 3 C's: content, coaching, and community. Content is usually e-learning based. So it's workshops, it's courses, it's quick tutorials, it's resources like templates. It's stuff that helps people accomplish something, learn something, shortcut something. The coaching is typically one-to-many. It's you showing up. It's doing live Q&A calls. It's making yourself available in a forum or a Facebook group. It's having a presence, answering questions at scale. And then the community element is usually a virtual space, an online space, like a traditional discussion forum. I'm old school. I love forums. But Facebook groups, Slack channels, and more you're seeing hybrid memberships as well, where the community part is actual in-person meetups. And they are typically, the word membership's ubiquitous. Like you have a membership to the AA for your roadside assistance. You have a membership to Audion. Like, the word membership is just one of those vague words, but when we're talking about it in a business and online business sense, then yeah, it's typically something that is created by someone who is a subject matter expert, who has that expertise, experience, and enthusiasm to show up and teach this stuff, show up and serve this audience day after day. Usually a one-man band, an individual, where they are the figurehead. It's based on their personal brand, and yeah, where they're just teaching either the thing that they do to other people, or they're teaching other people who serve that industry. And yeah, some of the memberships we worked over the years are just so diverse. We've had people come through our programs, start up memberships about tropical fish maintenance. We've had the traditional ones, social media memberships, marketing memberships, Facebook ads memberships, a lot of successful memberships in the music space. So I mentioned Scott before. Scott is a bass guitarist, and for a lot of years he traded time for money, doing lessons with local students and playing in bands, playing in the orchestra for musicals and stuff like that. But he developed a neurological condition called focal dystonia, which means he's over time just losing, I say over time now, I think it's kicked in, losing sensation in his extremities and his fingertips. Pretty important for a bass guitarist. So he just started creating YouTube videos, kind of thinking, well, I need to do something. I'll do YouTube videos, maybe I'll get sponsorships, or you put up a PayPal donation button, so a little link to a PayPal donation button, and people loved his stuff, and he was getting like $2,000 a month in voluntary donations because he was sharing free music lessons on YouTube. So that's when he kind of thought, okay, maybe this could be something.
Yeah.
Spoke to us, we're like, yeah, that's a membership. I think now, about 10 years on, he's had 80,000 students. He's like a $4 or $5 million a year business. And it's still called scottsbaselessons.com. This guy had no internet marketing experience. Like, just a minute, scottsbaselessons.com. That's just the most, I don't know, my name's Scott, I'm going to teach bass lessons. But yeah, SBL, Scott's Bass Lessons, the most successful bass guitar membership in the world, and it's just a guy in Leeds who had expertise to share and figured, you know what, for his reasons, it was health, and logistically, practically, you couldn't have continued trading time for money. I need to find a different way to leverage these skills that I have. So memberships aren't kind of just for people who have found out they've got a neurological condition, but you know, it is just that it just shows it's just looking at things in a different way. And I think,
So can you give us a few examples of maybe people that are at home listening who've got, say, a service business and they're thinking, well, I don't know how to teach guitar. Like I don't have, they might think they don't have something to teach, but how you've helped people transition their skill set into a membership business?
there's a lot of people in kind of marketing or business consultancy where they have developed frameworks or intellectual property. Like all of us, we have a particular approach, we have strategies we use, we have processes that we work through with our clients to help get them results. So you can take that process, that framework, the skills that you use, and you teach it. You can make it the core to something with a membership. And I think it's looking at things in the perspective of when you are selling time for money and doing stuff for someone, it's DFY, done for you. So can you do a DIY version of that? So a membership, creating a membership or a course or any sort of product is just finding a way of creating a DIY version of the things you are doing for your clients. So can you teach them to do something? Can you give them the templates, the framework to follow, a curriculum to follow? Maybe it's not something you can codify as learning materials, but could you actually create a membership where you're doing it with them? So it's DWI. And you give them some templates, you give them some action points, you give them a pathway, but you are looking over their shoulder. You are checking in with them once a week. You are getting on group calls with a small cohort to keep them on track towards working through a particular process or outcome. And so, again, you're not doing the work for them. You are giving them the frameworks. You're giving them the learning materials. You're giving them resources that you probably already use with your clients, templates, and so on. And you are just their coach through them implementing something themselves. Now, there's still industries where that isn't doable, just by virtue of what you're doing. I know before we record, you brought up the example of an architect. I'm not going to join a £20 a month membership and learn to become an architect. That's not the way you do it. But if it's not something where you can teach a skill or teach what is needed to help people work through a process to an outcome, if you can't teach that, can you teach the people who work with clients themselves? So could you teach other architects not how to be better architect, how to run their business?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just looking at the skills you have that you sell that you could leverage. It's looking at what else is part of that picture.
Yeah.
Most people who are experts in something are only experts in that thing. People don't start a business because they are experts in running a business. If you're an architect, if you're a web designer, if you are a florist, you don't start a business because you're a business expert. You start a business because you are a subject matter expert. And usually you're probably terrible at the business stuff.
Yes.
And hold my hands up, I was. Like, I
Yeah.
learned on the fly through a lot of mistakes and a lot of bad investment of the money, the little money that I was making in those first years. But most people who run the business, they're not good at marketing. They're not well organized. They don't really know how to run projects. They don't know how to use social media. They don't know how to use AI. There's a fantastic membership from Heather Murray and Alice Walton. They're based here in the UK, called AI for Non-Techies. And they are AI specialists who are teaching non-techie business owners how they can use AI in their own business. So it's looking at what other skills do you have beyond the thing you sell that you could teach to others in your industry. So can you teach accountants how to market their accountancy firm? So your membership isn't, this is a membership for accountants. It's a membership to help accountants with marketing. Super, super niche, but just leveraging your experience and your skills in a different way. So not everyone can start a membership. You need to have experience, expertise, enthusiasm, and a market that have like an evergreen challenge, problem, need. You're not going to start a membership that just teaches people how to build a table. Because once you've built it, what else do you need? Do you need a follow-on course on how to lay it, how to put the color? Like, some problems are one and done. Narrowed it down to what I call the membership motivators. These are essentially the 4 things that are at the heart of most successful memberships. The first is outcome. So this is where you are helping people to reach a particular outcome, get a result, reach a goal, or undergo a transformation. People don't join memberships to stand still. They want to change. They want positive change, progress. Usually that outcome is a big one. It's a one way off in the future. It might not be a tangible one. It might be like a qualitative one. They want to feel more confident. They want to feel happier. You can't really measure those things. It's not a dollars and cents thing, but it's a journey that you can help people along each stage of. A lot of memberships are outcome-driven memberships. And those are the ones that are typically heavily e-learning based. The second motivator is mastery. And again, this is where someone just wants to hone their craft to just become better. It's lifelong learning. You never complete piano. You never become okay, I'm done. I'm the ultimate piano player. Job done. Like, you're always learning. You're always refining. So mastery memberships tend to be more music industry. It's lifelong skills. The third motivator is connection. And this is becoming bigger and bigger in recent years, particularly with the rise of AI. People want that human-to-human connection. So you're not helping people learn something as such. You are just bringing like-minded people together and assembling your tribe, helping people build that support system, find friends, find peers, giving them that safe space to get support, encouragement, motivation. People are gravitating more and more towards safer, non-social media driven communities, which is a reflection of where we are in the world. But a lot of memberships that the community element is in the heart of it. Yeah. And the fourth motivator is resource. So this is, you're not teaching a big lofty thing. You're not helping people become incredible at a topic. You're not even bringing people together. You're just giving people stuff that makes their life, their job usually, a little bit easier, relieves a little headache, saves them a little bit of money, saves them a bit of time. So you're giving them templates, you're giving them pre-made resources, you're giving them stuff that saves them 20 minutes here, an hour here, well, $50 here. So my favorite example of that is a membership called Teaching Packs. Again, another fantastic UK entrepreneur by the name of Mark Warner. He's a teacher and he's created a membership for other teachers with pre-created bundles of classroom materials, worksheets, paint by numbers sheets, exercises, little fun fact sheets on history and chemistry and every topic imaginable. His market is busy teachers. They don't want a community. They're too busy.
Yeah.
They don't want to come to a live webinar every week. They're too busy. They pay for the resource of, okay, I've got this class to prepare for next week. I can sit down and spend 3 hours like designing material myself from scratch, or for the $20 a month, I'm sure it's 20, it might be less, that I paid to teaching packs, I just log in, search, find that, and I've got 8 new worksheets already created. So memberships that kind of provide audio samples for podcasters, like introductions, jingles,
Wow.
memberships that provide like fonts for graphic designers, provide snippets of code for web developers, all those kinds of things. And those types of memberships have been along longer than the membership industry. I was using those types of memberships when I was learning this stuff. So that's the fourth one, resource-driven memberships. And they're all quite distinct. There'll always be little overlapping parts, community will play a factor in every membership pretty much, apart from resource-driven ones. But generally, there is always one core motivator behind why someone would join a membership, and what you offer and how you position it should center around that. And so I think everything does start with figuring out, okay, what would drive my audience? If I'm an architect, if I were to create something else to service this audience, what would be their motivator? Are other architects, like, could I help them? Or are they striving for something that I can help them with? Are they just looking for a safe space where they can, talk about their lymphas? So they're driven by community. Do they want resources? Like, are they, I'm going to say, I'm probably showing myself up to any architects listening, but I'm sure CAD files are a thing for architects. All right.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
proud of myself of that. But yeah, like, is there like an archive of CAD file, like pre-created CAD files that would be valuable to them? £10-15 a month. I don't know. Some people might be scoffing at this, but is there something I can give them that save them 5 hours on every project? What's that 5 hours worth to them? So it's thinking of it from those perspectives and mapping up the expertise and the skills you have, not just in the thing you sell, but in the infrastructure and the systems and what you have learned and developed the additional skills around the thing you sell. And how would that translate to one of those membership motivators? Is it just selling? You've been in business for 20 years. We have email templates for every possible situation within my accountancy firm. We also have blueprints for marketing campaigns we do every end of tax year. We also have all these other things. If I were to just give that to another accountancy firm, that would help them immensely. And if you've kind of got, it's thinking like that, if you've got stuff like that, then that's potential for productization. And if it's something there'd be an ongoing need for, then that product could be a membership.
So I just wanted to ask, is this the memberships? Is this the kind of business where there's a lot of heavy lifting at the beginning, and then, then you flow into you doing your weekly calls and people are just joining and it takes a lot less energy? Because like let's stick with the architect's example. If I am an architect and I've got my architect's practice and I also want to have a membership business and help people, like, is it possible to do both? And is it possible to create a meaningful business with a membership business and have both at the same time?
Memberships definitely are not passive income. That was the big impression of them, and a lot of people, sadly, within the industry present them as though this is some sort of way of do a little bit of work and then the money just rolls in. It doesn't work like that. It's just a business model. Passive income, it's a spectrum anyway. Some things are more passive than others. The membership model is more passive than trading time for money. It's just about leverage. You still need to put the hours in. It's just the hour you put in keeps paying off. Like it adds to a body of work that becomes more valuable because of that hour. that increased value attracts more people and gets more people to stick around, but it still needs work. I've been doing this for 10 years. We've got a team of like 6, I think, and we all work on it full time. We obviously do a lot of other things like to make that happen, but no, it's a business. It's just a business that doesn't have the sort of ceiling, that has a lot more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment than trading time for money, that you have almost total control over shaping it and what you put into it. But it's a business. There is no magic money tree. The only truly passive income, I think, is real estate and investments. But no, this isn't it. It still needs work, but it can be ran around other things you're doing as part of a wider ecosystem. You just need to make sure that you are recognizing it's not passive. So you still need to do some work, whether that is deciding, okay, I want this to be something that maybe takes up 20% of my time. You need to allocate that time to it, whether that's treating it as though it's a client and booking out 1 day a week for it. I think the advice I always give to people when they're starting a new membership, treat it like a client and actually block in work in the same way that you were working it, the same way you don't take other emails, you don't get distracted, you just working it like that. Do that, block in that time to work on it. Look to bring in support as well for the stuff that could bleed in and take more time, like customer service and like the admin side. So I would look to outsource to a VA earlier than maybe if this was your sole focus. And adjust your expectations. Adjust your expectations and ensure your value proposition reflects the lower amount of time you have to invest. Like, don't commit to doing 2 live workshops a week and then wonder, why is this taking so much time? Because of course it is, because you're overcommitting. Like, as long as you're not overselling, as long as you're not promising something you can't deliver, then it's fine to do that. It's fine to have something that doesn't give as much, that isn't as high an expectation for the end user. And temper your own expectations as well. You're not going to have a little side hustle that you spend an hour on a day that's making you millions. And if you were, I'm pretty sure you would shut down the client services side pretty quick. And that's what happened with us. The academy, the membership academy, was going to be a smallish side thing. We thought it would maybe be 1/3 of the business at most. And within 3 months, it was just so clear, you know what? This is growing, and this should get more of us. And actually, it just makes sense because this is how much we're making on this side of things for this much work. It's that 80-20 rule. Like, got to a point where 80% of the business revenue was coming from the membership. And at the time when it was getting 20% of the attention, we're like, you know what? We're going to wind down the clients. We're going all in on that. But if that happens, that's a great problem to have. But absolutely, as long as you know and you're clear on it and you factor in the place it will hold in your business into designing the value proposition, into your marketing, bring in support earlier. Definitely bring in support earlier. And you'll probably find pretty soon that you start thinking, I want to do more of this because this is cool. It's fun because you get to just work with passionate people who've invested their time in learning. So
Amazing. Mike, if people want to connect with you, find out more about you, hear you on your podcast, where can they find you?
Best place to go is membershipgeeks.com. We've got a load of free resources and our podcast, like 10 years now of the podcast. So that is just a treasure trove. And if you like what you hear and it shows you how you can start a membership, then you can work with us further inside our own membership about memberships, which is membershipacademy.com. Like to keep it meta. But membershipgeeks.com, best place to go.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today, Mike.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.